It is 7 p.m. I will call the Planning Commission meeting for December 9th, 2020 to order. This meeting is being held remotely by Zoom due to the pandemic, although we do have one staff member at City Hall. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote to the members?
I can. Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Batty.
Here.
Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Keane.
Here.
Commissioner Brink.
Here.
And Chair Langness.
Present. We have a quorum and we will move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. We ask for those that are able to join us in our nation's pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all. We have approval of the agenda next on the list. Members, is there a motion on the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Commissioner Brink has moved. Is there a second? Commissioner Keane?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, Karen, can you please take a roll call vote on approval of the agenda?
Commissioner Young.
Aye.
Commissioner Batty.
Aye.
Commissioner Keane.
Aye.
Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
Chair Langness.
Aye, motion carries. We will move on to item number 5, approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes from our November 18th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion from any commissioner? Commissioner Batty?
So moved.
Commissioner Batty moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Keane, second. Is there discussion on approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting? Seeing none, Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young.
Aye.
Commissioner Batty.
Aye.
Commissioner Keane.
Aye.
Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
And Chair Langness.
Aye, motion carries. We will move on to item number 6. And this is very similar to item number 7. Item number 6 is Church of St. Peter Conditional Use Permit Amendment Application. It does have a public hearing, and then we can have consideration of the conditional use permit. This is final approval by the Planning Commission. In conjunction, there is a second one after this that is the Planned Unit Development Amendment Application, which also has a separate public hearing before consideration, and that's a recommendation to council. So the way that this will go is our staff, Donovan, wherever he is on here, will present the staff report. Commissioners can ask questions. We'll then open it up for the applicant. Commissioners can then ask questions. Then we'll move into the public hearing where the public can provide any additional information or concerns that they might have for us. And then we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. And then we'll do the whole thing over again for the second piece of the St. Peter's Church. So Donovan, do you want to get us kicked off here?
Certainly. I'd like to present the CUP amendment and PUD amendment applications for the Church of St. Peter of Forest Lake. This is actually the third time that the church has come seeking an amendment to the property that's related to both its use as a house of worship as well as an additional structure, which is the reason why we have both the CUP and PUD applications before you. What is proposed, I'll first kind of give you a the overall campus, which is located at 1250 South Shore Drive. Shown on your screen, you can see South Shore Drive here, the main church and school building here, parking lot that was the subject of the 2017 CUP PUD amendment. 2012 is the annex building that was another PUD CUP application. And where the parish rectory is proposed is at the far end, basically southwest of the current parking lot. Shown in the submitted site plan, we have both, again, kind of the overall view, showing the building, and then the more detailed site plan, which shows the single-story structure. It's 4 bedrooms, approximately 3,500 square feet, to house both the priest and the associate priest for the church. Its access is from the bituminous driveway that's currently there. What they're doing is replacing 2 accessory structures in that location, and part of this application is to put a storage shed elsewhere on the property. I'll get to that in a minute. But this is the site plan showing the basic structure. Also submitted is this is the proposed shed location, but we'll get to that in a second. Then also we have utility and sewer line, water utility and sewer lines, as well as the basic appearance, building rendering and a floor plan. It's part of your packet, so it's I think a rather attractive house. But the church, has submitted for I believe, and has received a watershed district, CAPROC for the project, for the sediment erosion control permit, I believe. The fire chief reviewed the plans and didn't have any concerns as far as emergency response. And again, this is, as a single family dwelling, it is a permitted use, just it being on the church, place of worship property, puts in within this other land use application category. The city engineer had some concerns, just expressed some current concerns about this. They relate to basically more about the building permit piece of this. And, within the plan unit development provisions within the zoning code, there is a collection of review criteria. And the staff response for those is that it's, my belief that the findings of fact for the conditional use permit and for the PUD finds compatible, with the comprehensive plan and the zoning code. And just, if I wanted to just jump back for a second, I realized to the submittal related to the storage shed. What's proposed is a 29 by 36 structure. What Father Bodine has just informed me is that this location may change. So I think they're seeking some flexibility that when they do place this on the property, I believe somewhere near the annex building, more on the northern part of the site, meeting all applicable setbacks, that basically get the PUD permission now for the added building, and then the site plan can be amended with that building permit application when that comes in. And so that's it's a switch there, but still relates to the same size of building, and they're seeking permission for a storage shed, and that's within that's within the staff recommendations, which is for approval for the let's go first with the CUP amendment to have all the original CUP conditions from 2007, 2012, and 2017 remain in full force and effect, and that any future alterations beyond what's on this application, and if they're significant, would be required an amendment of this CUP amendment application. So with that, I'm happy taking questions from the Planning Commission.
Commissioners, are there questions on the staff report? Commissioner Keane.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on that shed. They've got the shed by the gymnasium. They've got an arrow out to the woods, and now you're talking about putting it behind the existing rectory that they're going to sell? Because our last meeting, the church was going to sell that building upon completion of the new rectory. Is that where you just bought a little arrow up?
Yeah, Mike. So if I could clarify, the current rectory is a townhouse off of Scandia Trail in Everton. It's not located on this site. What I was pointing out, that building kind of on the northern end is what they call the annex building. There's some, I believe, classrooms there, maybe some office space, maybe just church storage. So that's not a residence. So that is, what they're seeking to do is just regarding the storage shed is move it to a different location than I've shown.
Okay, so it's not going to be behind that annex building, because that's the one we talked about last meeting, that they're going to sell that over by the town.
No.
No, that's what I was talking about, because they're building a new rectory, correct?
They're building a rectory, right? The first one. There's not a new one. I mean, this will be a new building, but no, not sure what you mean about selling.
Well, the priest used to live in that annex building years ago.
Oh, well, he doesn't. No, that's not a residence now.
Okay.
Father Bodine does not live there now. Maybe I should have him speak to this.
No, that's fine. We were on two different pages at the time then, because I was thinking about that building when they're done. What were they going to do with it? And he said they're going to sell it. So that's fine. They're keeping that building. They're going to put the shed maybe behind there. That's up in the air yet. That's fine.
Okay.
But I do have a question about on page 3. It states there's no nearby wetlands, but yet the site plan says approve wetlands boundaries. And there's a big swampland right behind the house that they're proposing to build. So I'm wondering why there's no nearby wetlands. When I walked the property last week, it looked pretty close to the wetlands.
I believe those wetlands are far down the hill. When I visited the site, I didn't recognize them, and they're not. I mean, wetland setback is 20 feet for structures. That's where my concerns out there.
Okay, I'm good.
All right, Commissioner Batty, I saw your hand go up as well.
Some of what I was going to ask about, Commissioner Keane covered, but we don't. This shed we don't have any idea what it's going to look like, or how tall it's going to be, or the materials, or anything. It's just a rectangle? What's the deal on that?
Well, what the information was given to me, it's in the memo, is that the shed height and roof line will match the main church building. And so that's, maybe Father Bodine can speak, more on that, but that's information we have so far.
Yeah, but I mean, think about that. The parts of the church are 30 or 35 feet high. That makes no sense. It's okay. It's not anything that I'm worried about, but it seems like there should have been a little bit more of a description of that. I mean, I would be highly, I would be very, very surprised if they use the same kind of materials on a storage shed that they don't even know where the location of it's going to be that would match the church. I mean, the church is a commercial building, masonry building. Again, it doesn't compute.
Right.
I mean, I
Father
don't have any problem with them, coming back when, or handling it with the building permit, but it seems like there should be a couple more conditions in here that kind of cover that. It's not that I don't trust them, but I'm just talking about, process here. And I think that, I think there should be some kind of stipulation in there of what they're actually planning to do with that building. And I don't think that would be hard to do. I'm not suggesting we delay the application, but I think that we should put another, at least one more condition in here that they're, that they submit some kind of a drawing or something that shows what this thing is going to look like.
And perhaps Father Bodine can expand on that in a moment after questions on the staff report. Susan, did I see your hand go, or Commissioner Young, did I see your hand go up as well?
No, sir.
Okay. Are there other questions on the staff report? I have one, Donovan. It kind of piggybacks off of where Commissioner Batty is going. You had said that it would need to meet, the shed would need to meet requirements. Is that requirements of the single family zoning district that it's adjacent to, or is that another set of requirements?
No, what I was referring to was setback requirements. At this point, with it being an institution like that, I don't believe it should, for instance, adhere to the height rules for accessory structures in the single family zone. I'd like to perhaps ask the permission of the Plan Commission to leave it to staff discretion as far as that sizing and in the actual dimensions of it. But it do stay within this 29 by 36 size that's currently proposed.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Are there other questions on the staff report, Commissioner Brink?
Just a comment, kind of piggybacking what Donovan was saying. I guess if that shed was more of an accessory structure to the house, I could kind of see where there could be some, I guess, stipulations to what it would be in a single family area. But I mean, it looks like it's just attached right to the church. I guess it makes sense to me what you're saying, that it would be a staff discretion.
Okay. Other questions on the staff report? All right. Father Bodine, did you have additional comments you wanted to add or anything to present to us?
Just for clarification on the wetlands, it is the
Father Bodine, I apologize for interrupting you. Can you keep your head a little closer to the microphone?
Mic is on this computer, but can you hear me better now?
That is much better. Thank you.
Just for clarification on the wetlands, we did contact the Rice Street Watershed District, and the restrictions are that you have to be 30 feet back from the wetlands. And we did receive our permit from them already. That's been taken care of. The other thing regarding the shed would be a metal building. And currently, regarding the location that's in question, if it does go up to the building, that would require us to sprinkle, to add fire protection with sprinkling the building and stuff. So that's why we're thinking about moving the location from next to the building to behind that annex building. And that's why we're a little hesitant yet about where that location is.
Right. Is there anything additional you'd like to present to us?
Unless there's other questions that people have.
Okay. Yep, we'll go into that. I saw Commissioner Keane's hand go up first.
Yes, if that shed is going to be moved behind the annex building, then would that fall into the rules of the residential area where it can only be so high?
Correct, and we'd be looking at building it the walls only 10 feet high with a 29 by 36 foot structure for the foundation.
Are there other questions of the applicant?
And for clarification too, as far as the rectory, the current rectory that we live at is at 20182 Explorer Court North. It's a residential house, and we would be selling that property and moving back on campus of the church.
That's fine, Father. I just remember going to back in the days, it was the rectory and the priests lived there, but that's many, many years ago. So
yeah,
my misunderstanding.
Yeah, and it was a convent, so actually nuns were living there. It never was a rectory.
Are there other questions of the applicant from commissioners? All right, thank you, Father Bodine. We may come back to you after the public hearing. So commissioners, we will move into our public hearing. Donovan, do we have anyone at City Hall?
We have Father Bodine here at City Hall.
Of course. Is there anyone waiting to speak in this public hearing?
No, there is not.
Okay. Karen, do we have anyone online? All right. And I forgot to mention this. We'll open up the public hearing at 7:21 p.m. here. Karen, did we have anyone online?
No, I do not have anyone waiting.
All right. We will give it 30 seconds. So if there is somebody wishing to speak on the conditional use permit application for the Church of St. Peter, please raise your hand, send a comment to staff, and we'll bring you in. All right, Karen, has anyone raised their hand or? Okay, and Donovan, no one's walked into City Hall?
No, sir.
Eric, was
All right.
Mr. Mann trying to speak?
Commissioner Young, I'm sorry, could you?
Was Mr. Mann trying to speak? I saw the little yellow thing pop up.
The Sergeant Mon?
Yes.
Nope, I don't have anybody.
I'm sorry.
I saw it, Sharon.
I'm not seeing anyone, Commissioner Young.
Mm.
Okay. So we will close the public hearing at 7:23 and bring it back to the commission for consideration of a motion. This is final approval by the Planning Commission. Commissioners? Commissioner Young?
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of the conditional use permit, considering that there were no comments in the public hearing and with meeting all of these staff recommendations.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Batty? Or Commissioner Brink seconded it?
Well, it doesn't matter.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. It should have been the conditional use findings of fact. I apologize.
Do you want to withdraw your motion and make it over again?
Yes, please.
All right, the motion's been withdrawn. Commissioner Young?
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of the conditional use permit, considering that there were no comments during the public hearing, and adopting the conditional use findings of fact.
Commissioner Young moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Brink seconds. A discussion on the item? Commissioner Keane?
Are they gonna, is that the way Is there going to be a stipulation in there at all about the shed where they're going to come back and work with the city on that, or it's just a go? Is that what the motion was? They could just do whatever they want with that shed?
Donovan, will that not come up in the next agenda item?
That it is properly related to the PUD, the multiple structures on the site. And it does, and the CUP is more related to the use. And it, you know, it could be termed an accessory structure, and the types of the size and the height would be compliant with single family rules for accessory structures. So the use is fine with the CUP, and perhaps within the PUD amendment, any sort of conditions could be properly placed there.
All right. Other comments? I'm not seeing any. So Karen, can you please take a roll call vote on the motion of approval?
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Keane,
Aye.
Commissioner Brink,
Aye.
Chair Langness.
Aye, motion carries. We'll move on to item number 7, Church of St. Peter Plan Unit Development Amendment Application. Donovan, did you have an additional staff report on this?
No, I believe that, you know, there really is quite an overlap, but as noted, it does relate to the number of structures on the site relating to the parish rectory proposed at that southwest corner of the parking lot, and a storage shed that's proposed to be, you know, 29 by 36 in size. And this, of course, is a recommendation to City Council, it being a PUD amendment application. And if you want, I could show you the site plan, but as we've discussed, it's, you know, the rectory is proposed in that location, and the shed is proposed to be in a different location in the future.
I believe the commissioners are familiar with it from our previous meeting and the previous item on this agenda. So unless they ask, I don't think it's necessary. Are there questions on the staff report? Seeing none. Father Bodine, did you have anything additional on the second item? You are on mute. I can't see if your mouth is moving though.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I
Yeah,
can.
I have nothing else to add. Fine.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions of the applicant? Seeing none, we'll move into the public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at 7:28 p.m. Donovan, has anyone walked into chambers wishing to speak on this item?
No.
Thank you. Karen, is there anyone online that has indicated they wish to speak to this item? Karen?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll give it 30 seconds for someone to raise their hand or indicate that they wish to speak in the public hearing on item number 7, Church of St. Peter Plan Unit Development Amendment Application. All right, Donovan, anyone at City Hall yet?
No.
Thank you. Karen, did anyone indicate online?
I have no one.
Thank you both. We'll close the public hearing at 7:29 p.m. and bring it back to the commissioners for consideration of a motion. This is a recommendation to council. Commissioner Young?
Mr. Chair, I would move that the Planning Commission recommend to council that the planned unit development amendment application for the Church of St. Peter be adopted, that it be adopted consistent with the staff recommendations for both the conditional use permit and the planned unit development recommendations.
There's been a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Keane.
Aye, second.
Commissioner Keane seconds. Is there any discussion on this item? Commissioner Batty.
I don't want to drag things out here, but I just on my other computer here, I've just pulled up this site plan and so I can see the whole thing here. And it would be interesting, Donovan, to know what kind of setback requirements there are for an accessory structure in residential zoning, because I think it's going to be a real challenge to get a building of that size north of the annex.
The accessory structure setbacks are 10 feet from those property lines nearby.
So that's the only setback requirement then, is that it be 10 feet from that, regardless of how high it is?
Yeah, but I mean, Father Bodine's already indicated there would be.
Yeah, I know he has. I'm just.
Yeah. I mean, there's a 10-foot setback sidewall maximum, and also it needs to be 6 feet from the annex building.
All right. Other comments?
I was based on a conversation you and I had earlier on another project. I was thinking we were looking at larger setbacks than that, but I could be wrong. So I'm in favor of moving ahead with this.
Other discussion, commissioners? My only comment is I'm pretty trusting. I'm looking at the rest of the plans that St. Peter's brought forward here. Both their previous development about 3 years ago on the church and school, the house and its planning. I would honestly be really surprised if they went downhill from the standards they've set forth on the rest of it. And I will, I'm very open to allowing staff the discretion on this particular one in approval. And if it's not meeting the staff standards, it certainly can come back to us. So I'm pretty comfortable and we'll support this here. Commissioner Batty?
I am too. And but I didn't want the applicant leaving here with the notion that, that there was, that building could be fit back there if indeed it wasn't going to be possible. And if it is, it's fine. I have no objection at all to approving it. And I feel the same way about their, the way the church does business.
Okay. Other discussion? Seeing none, Karen, can you please take a roll call vote on item number 7, Church of St. Peter Plan Unit Development Amendment Application for approval?
Commissioner Young.
Aye.
Commissioner Batty.
Aye.
Commissioner Keane.
Aye.
Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
And Chair Langness.
Aye, motion carries. Father Bodine, I wish you the best of luck in building your new home on the church, and I wish you a Merry Christmas.
Appreciate it. Thanks to all of you too. I appreciate it.
We're moving on to item number 8, Willowbrook Community Church Conditional Use Permit application. This is very similar to the St. Peter's process, where it does have final approval by the Planning Commission. It does have a public hearing, and then we'll bring it back to the commission with the same process we used. Donovan, do you want to get us kicked off on Willowbrook?
Certainly. I'd like to present the conditional use permit application for Willowbrook Community Church. We're joined this evening by Pastor Brad Reese. This relates to something that this has come before the Planning Commission a few other times, and related to an interim use permit that the church applied for and received in 2011 and 2017 to operate a place of worship in a leased space within this general mixed use MU2 zoning district. The church itself is located within the Lakes shopping center, located on South Lake Street. It's basically the eastern part of the L-shaped structure, in which they in 2011 began worshiping there. Pastor Reese's narrative talks about how they started in 2000 and basically grew into this space. So they even inhabit that. And even back in 2017 with the more recent interim use permit, he had indicated a desire to purchase the property. And now they're in negotiations to purchase this basically as a condo within the shopping center. So they'd like to change their land use to be a conditional use permit and not an interim use permit. In this case, a place of worship is allowed in the general mixed use zoning district, and it's only before, and I believe there's a zoning text amendment for this, and Commissioner Young, I believe, was a part of that one, to allow it in lease space where there was not a property interest with the church. So that's the status of it, and currently there's no external additions or anything proposed at this time. So basically, it's simply a zoning change. I'd like to present just a little bit more to give you just more of just locate you within this. Here's a exterior photo of the church. And this is basically standing on Lake Street or Highway 61. Here we see the parking area that's been basically allocated for this use. There's no concerns that I have with the amount of parking. And in fact, with the application, there are two letters of support from both the Music Connection and Don Julio's in support of the church and maintaining a permanent residence there and noting it's good for business. Seems like it's really, produces more activity on more of a slower day. I just want to point out here specifically where the church is within the shopping center, within the address is 840 Lake Street South, and taking up that eastern part of the L-shaped shopping structure. And also the shaded area shows the parking that which is 98 spaces. And I'm sorry, it's 98 required. This parking plan shows 205 spaces. There are conditional use findings of fact, in which staff believes that there isn't anything out of line with this continuing use. There were these conditions that related to the place of worship use within the interim use permit, with the original one from 2011, that were transferred over in 2017. The staff recommendation here for approval doesn't include those conditions. They related to operating hours and the shared use of the parking facility and those things. And I don't believe that there's been any issues related to anything related to that. And I looked, of course, at the St. Peter's conditional use permit. It doesn't have any of those type of conditions. So I'm not recommending including those conditions now, as a part of this. But a condition, though, I do believe is appropriate, that the conditional use permit doesn't go into effect and is not recorded with the county until the Willowbrook Community Church does purchase the property to make it eligible, with the CUP, as a CUP, place of worship in this commercial zoning district. The interim use permit does not expire until June 1st, 2026. And so, but for whatever reason that the church didn't gain ownership, that still is in place, and they, have, legal use as a place of worship in this location until then, and they would have to apply for another IUP if needed at that point, or just let it expire if the CUP is already in effect. And also including any future site plan changes, they're significant, or change of use to the property would require amendment of the conditional use permit. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the Planning Commission.
Commissioners, or Commissioner Young.
Donovan, the narrative submitted by Pastor Reese says that they have 800 attenders. And so I'm curious about the number of only requiring 98 parking spaces.
So that,
I mean, 800 divided by 3 is more than 98.
yeah. Well, this is what the zoning code says. And I'm just relating to that. I don't have concerns about that the primary Sunday morning use of the shopping center parking spaces. And in general, I think what the code, if I'd read through the lines there, they're assuming that there's more than one occupant per vehicle. So that, assuming that families come to worship together.
Okay, but if the zoning code says 3 persons, you need a vehicle for every 3 persons, and they have 800 attenders, that's 266 parking spots.
Mm-hmm.
Which is much different than 98.
Okay. Well,
I'm just trying to understand, Donovan.
Yeah. No, I think what the narrative says is 800 members, but what the zoning code is related to seats, and perhaps Pastor Reese can educate us on how many seats are there, and that's what the parking requirements based on, not the actual number of members.
Yeah, and they don't teach us this at seminary, so I'm kind of learning as I'm going along with you, Susan. The thing I think that's important to understand is we do offer multiple services, so I don't know if that makes a difference or not in that question. So if we were a congregation of 800 people, we only had one option on a Sunday, I feel that's an issue. But from 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock service, it's usually a pretty even swap out of vehicles too. In our auditorium, we have on a Sunday about 420 chairs for the adults, and then there's ample room for the students and for the children. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I get the concern at first. I go, yeah, it does seem like an overcrowded situation in the lot, but I think you mentioned in your narrative, Donovan, that we haven't had any issues in the 10 years we've been here as we've been growing that I'm aware of. Pastor's the last to hear, but of spaces that were not allowing the customers to be in the locations they needed to be in at the stores.
Commissioner Young.
With 420 seats, that's 140 spaces. You have experienced very, very good growth. And I'm sure that once you have purchased your building and have made improvements to the interior that one would make as an owner, my concern is making sure that as you continue to grow, that there are sufficient spaces. And Donovan said that you need 98, and so if there are 420 seats, then that's more parking spaces than 98. So I'm not concerned about today. If we recommend this, then there will be growth in the future, and I just don't want to have a bad situation happen in the future.
All right. Are there other questions from commissioners on the staff report? Commissioner Keane.
Yeah, maybe you can help me out here a little bit. The zoning code requires ownership before the CUP is issued. So what are we doing here today if they don't own it yet? Can you help me out with that, Donovan?
Well, Pastor Reese wanted to set this in motion in order to have some certainty, that after they had gone through the negotiations and the, all the work that goes into a purchase agreement and executed it, that they would have that certainty that they would have a CUP, conditional use permit, versus an interim use permit. And in fact, within the narrative that Randy Fett, the owner, submitted, he said it's a condition of the purchase that the church has a CUP in hand, which is a little bit a misnomer because they can't have the CUP as a leased as a leasee in this space, but it's they will have basically a conditional use permit.
So we're not issuing the CUP. We're just okaying our part of it, and then it has to go in front of city council when they purchase it?
We do have final approval on this, Commissioner Keane. So it just means the timeline would flip after the sale. Commissioner Young.
Mr. Chair, Donovan, in the past, we have denied conditional use permits because there was not the applicant did not own the property.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to make sure that we are consistent and we are not going against precedent that we have already set and establishing a very, very different precedent for the future.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if I can't think of an exact example with these, but I believe that even a property interest does constitute ownership. And, I didn't ask Pastor Reese if, they'd actually, put interest, earnest money down or how if there was anything contingent now with the agreement, with the sales contract is, but it's actually pretty, it is a pretty common situation with developers where, there is an applicant that's different from the owner. And we approve those, and, developers don't want to take control of the property until they know they have the entitlements.
But someone already owns that property at the time, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So.
And the owner signed this application.
Okay.
Commissioner Batty, I saw your hand go up as well.
I did one more quick one here. The applicant signed it on page 29, but the applicant cannot live in a PO box. I know that. And on page 29, Brad Reese lives in a PO box 864.
And it's miserable. It's miserable.
The shower is really, really tiny.
That was my wife's request, by the way.
We're going to get to the little homes. The little homes are coming later.
Commissioner Batty, I saw your hand go up as well.
It just seems like tonight we've got lots of stuff that seems like rabbit holes. But I'm baffled here by the process again. And Brad, this has nothing to do with you. I would fully support your your application here, but it just seems like we're creating chaos here unnecessarily with the way this application is being presented. I mean, either we as a city have a process and a requirement as when it comes to submitting CUP applications, And I, as you know, I have a little experience in this previously, about 300 times or more. I'm neither bragging nor complaining, but what is the city's requirement here as far as the submitting of a CUP application? It just seems to me that the city should have a policy and a procedure, a zoning ordinance requirement on this, so we don't even have to ask these kind of questions. There's another issue here that, and it may not be an issue, but you said that they're buying it as a condo, but yet the drawings that you submitted tonight, or submitted to us in the packet here, leave us with the impression that there's property lines involved here other than just, I know what a condo property line looks like. And this don't look like a condo property line to me. In fact, and this may just be an oversight, but the PID number doesn't match up with the property. And maybe Pastor Brad can answer this question about how the property, if it is a condo purchase and they're not buying the parking, the property where the parking is, I understand that, and I don't have any problem with that. But that's not clear from the drawings or the information that's been presented so far. And I think we need that item. I think that needs to be clarified. And I'm assuming that it will be. And I'm assuming that since the PID numbers don't line up with the condo, what the condo property lines are going to be, that there's going to need to be some kind of a platting process involved at some point in time here.
All right, Commissioner Keane.
Commissioner Batty made a good point there. They're buying the building, but not the parking lot. What's to say in 3 years from now, the owners put up another part of a strip mall right along 61 or over by the Music Connection. Now the parking is down to, instead of 200 spots, it's down to 75 or 80.
Donovan, did you want to respond?
Okay, yeah, sure.
At least talking with the landlord, it would have been great to have him chime in. I'm speculating, but in our conversation, he definitely was including the parking lot in that purchase. So again, I'm not familiar with how that language would work, but he has done condo, selling in the past. So I'm assuming he would know some of those answers that I don't. But when that line that you saw drawn that Donovan had pointed out was the previous landlord, the Sprotsy, I think it was Sprotsy's who owned it, who had mentioned to us at one point, when they were leaving the or selling it at that time, that if we ever wanted to purchase that would be the area that we would be looking at purchasing. So we were assuming that would be the back side of the building going what direction? South, as well as heading north. Again, it would be good to talk to Randy Fett, who's the landlord, about that. So I can't imagine us willing to take on a purchase of just a building. And then again, you said it well, what if someone builds on that spot? Well then, so it was never thought of as just a building.
All right, Donovan, did you have something to respond?
Yeah, certainly, thank you. Well, any future building proposals would have to meet parking requirements and, couldn't be allowed unless there was adequate parking for all the users. And so, if we looked at the number of the seats, within the Willowbrook Church, which has changed since the 2011, that was from the previous staff memo that I pulled that 98, 100, I'm sorry, the 98 required parking spaces for that size. Anyways, that, any future proposal couldn't just take away the parking. It would still need to be there to serve all the users that are existing.
All right, Commissioner Brink.
Pastor Reese, just to elaborate here on the parking spaces, were these like earmarked as far as amount of parking spaces that was going to go with this building? Or what was the conversation?
In our conversation with the landlord?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, he just met with us and our advisory team and just shared, that, this is from the prior landlord, this was the way he purchased it, that the parking would go along with the building. I think the way Donovan said it, I think when you set up a church and you have seating, you have to provide for the parking for that amount of seating. So with that in mind, I would assume that was the carryover to the plan that Randy had with us, as he shared with the advisory committee. This would be the territory that you would be purchasing, and the valuation from the appraiser or from the bank, and this is going to be your piece of property on that condo type of purchase. So we didn't really question what you guys are discussing, but we just assume, what assume means, we assume that's just what goes with territory. So this is news to me. I mean, this is a new territory for me that we'd have to have Randy involved with.
Also, if I could remind the planning commissioners that, I mean, the division of land and everything is not what we're looking at here. I mean, this is not community interest. Community interest platting that's going on at this stage. That will come in the future. What's before you is a conditional use permit for a place of worship in this generally, mixed use zoning district. I'll also remind you that it is rather common for the applicant not to own the property, even as recently as the last planning commission meeting, where we had the concept plan for part of some farmland at the end of Enfield Road and Headwaters Parkway, where we had a different applicant, a builder, where the current owner, the farmer, also signed the application, and all this conversation was not involved. So I'm not sure why it's coming up now. I don't see this as a big deviation from other practices.
Commissioner Young.
Donovan, us discussing a concept plan is much different than granting a conditional use permit. Or at least that's what I've always been led to believe. A concept plan is, we're not taking any votes. It's, give and take a little, what do you think? This is what we think, yada, yada, yada. This particular shopping center is based on the shared parking spaces among all of the users, not only of the church, Don Julio's, Farrell's, Stewie's, etc., but also parking for the Music Connection gun building. And so, quite frankly, I'm not sure that all of those uses would have sufficient parking without, and again, we have always made sure that there were cross-lot easements so that shared parking was expressly in contracts and in property reviews, so that we could be assured that there would be sufficient parking for all of the various uses.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Donovan.
Yeah, I was just.
I'm not sure that this application is ripe at this time.
Can I speak to that one?
Yeah, go ahead, Donovan.
We've had basically 10 years of experience with this. I mean, this is, and this is a time where there are, we have restaurants, we have retail operations, we have, there's noon rush times, there's evening rush times. There's not, I'm not aware of like all the other restaurants having the huge brunch rushes that would be in conflict with the primary use of the 9 and 11 a.m. service times on Sundays.
Commissioner Batty, I saw your hand go up next. I'll call on you right after Commissioner Keane.
Want me to go ahead?
Yep, go ahead, Commissioner Batty.
I see where you're coming from, Donovan. But this parking issue, you know, again, this doesn't have anything to do with the church. But this part, you know, whether they're buying this parking, 204 or whatever that was, parking spaces or not, is a huge issue here. And he needs, you know, I mean, Brad or Pastor Brad, what's your timeline here?
For the purchase or for tonight?
No, for the purchase.
Well, you know, if we were going into a campaign to raise what we would suggest, you know, just proximity of, there's been no numbers shared, by the way, by our landlord. But if we went in, we'd say the average would be about 18 months.
I mean, so if we were to table this thing, I just, I'm gonna protect you here, you know. I don't, because I think you've got to have a solid answer here on this parking thing. And I mean, it was a question in my mind before, because I did a little bit of research before the meeting on this, because I was just curious about the property lines, you know, and the fact, and the PID numbers do nothing but confuse it further, because the PID lines actually go east and west there. In other words, the south 2/3 of that building is on that 09 PID, but then the rest of the site to the north is on it's the same PUD number, but it ends in an 8. And they don't have anything to do with the church property here, other than the would be the east and I guess the south property line of that 09 PID number. So I think you need to get some clarity here on what it is you're actually purchasing. And I think that needs to be part of this application to us. I mean, I can't, the last thing in the world, Pastor Brad, I want to do is slow you down or discourage you in any way. I don't want to do that, but there's some huge unknowns here that I think that need to be resolved here before this application can move ahead. I don't have any, I understand the difference of, you know, the owner, essentially the applicant wanting the CUP, but somebody else owns the property. I've done that dozens and dozens of times on projects. So it's not that's not an issue in my mind. But if this is a pure condo sale, that raises even more questions in my mind.
I will remind commissioners, we are still on staff report. We will give the applicant an opportunity to present anything, and we still have a public hearing. So please do not motion to table anything until after that.
I wouldn't jump.
I did see Commissioner Keane's hand go up, and then I'll call on you, Commissioner Young.
Well, I was just going to mention earlier about, you know, are you buying a building, or are you buying a building and the parking lot, or what? So that's, you know, that's why I mentioned about if they build another like small strip mall, or even a video store or something, or a liquor store in that other corner, that's going to cut into the parking lot. But if you're buying the parking lot and the building, that's different. But we don't have that information. So I agree with Commissioner Batty about possibly moving this forward, or putting this on hold for a while.
Commissioner Young.
Donovan, long ago, there was a strip mall that said that we have more than sufficient parking. And at present day, Norman Quack is there, Papa John's is there, there's another restaurant there. and there is not sufficient parking. And there is a battle continuously with the poor dry cleaner, who folks can't get into that dry cleaner because the parking spaces in front of it are taken up by other users. And so the city tried to learn from that lesson. And it is why we made sure that in subsequent situations, we were very clear about shared parking and cross-lot easements, and no matter what the uses were in the rest of the buildings, there would be sufficient parking for those uses.
Commissioner,
And I agree with Commissioner Batty. I'm really concerned for the church to make sure that they can say, yes, we've got parking, but they don't have anything in writing. They don't have a purchase agreement. There are things lacking here.
Commissioner Brink.
Yeah, I mean, I echo everyone else's sentiments here about parking. That was a big red flag for me before this even started. I was wondering, does the landlord also own the Music Connection building as well? No, that's separate. Okay. All right. I was just curious because the many years, I mean, I've lived in Forest Lake all my life, and even with that building up, rarely is that lot of or slot of spots ever really full. So I didn't really think that was even a consideration to begin with, but I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
All right. Other questions on the staff report? All right. Seeing none. Do you go by Pastor Brad or Pastor Reese? I heard it both ways earlier.
Pastor Brad's fine. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Pastor Brad, do you have anything additional for us that you wish to present here?
No, I mean, I noted a lot of things you discussed. Being here 10 years, I think, Donovan, you were kind of echoing that earlier, sharing that if we're worried about the parking and we've been growing and this lot, this just because I live here every day in a little small P.O. box, we've never fought parking. I mean, I wouldn't say never, but rarely have we fought. And I would suggest that that lot from most often during this week, I know you're kind of sharing a little bit about that comparison. I think you're talking about the restaurants that all combined together down that road, which I agree. I've gone there to the, I think it's called the Chinese Garden or whatever that place is called. And you're like, whoa, where are we going to, I get that. I don't know if that's a fair comparison to the 10% we typically see populated out here every single day, where I could probably take my golf club and not hit a car for, of course, I'm a terrible golfer. But so I guess I want to be able to explain to our board of directors what your concerns are, and then discuss the realistic discussion on it and go, if we even had purchased and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, if we even purchased the lot, is there a suggestion that we're concerned about the PIDs when we're driving? Like as we're cutting through, they're like, oh, we're in private property, I'm driving over someone's land. I just want to know how to present this, because I wouldn't think I plant churches, and we planted them in movie theaters, we planted them in condo. The connection or relationship that the church and the people have around here, it's kind of a role model of how we do life. So I don't know what we're kind of up against and what you're bringing up and what's surfacing here, but I would like to have more details about the concerns or fears. So if I'm reporting this to the board, my board, they at least go, yeah, we should probably have discussion how this looks and how this works, because we've never had I really haven't had an issue with the description of what I was hearing and the concern that I was hearing. So if you've got some examples and illustrations of real life stories that happened here, then I go, let's talk about it. But other than that, I'm afraid if I bring it up to my landlord, he'll go, whoa, what have we experienced here? So that's where we're at. But it's well noted. I just want to make sure in my mind that what we're using as an analogy is as best we can universal to how we make decisions for other people. their lots as well. So if you're in that direction, I'd go, let's talk about it.
Does that complete your presentation, Pastor Brad?
Sorry. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So we'll have questions. I saw Commissioner Young's hand go up first.
Well, I yield to Mr. Batty.
Commissioner Batty.
Okay, did I get it?
You did it. We can hear you.
I'm sorry.
Good.
We're like computer. 3 things, Pastor Brad.
Yep.
I don't think there's anybody, I can't speak for, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but, we're not objecting to what you're wanting to do.
No.
We're simply wanting to make sure that we follow the right process. That's all we're trying to do here. And but we've got to have an answer on what it is actually that you're buying. Are you buying that whole, it would be almost half of that entire shopping center if the site plan that with that red mark on it is
Right.
is accurate. And that we don't know that yet. The second thing is when you, I got to be careful how I word this. The other thing that we need in writing what some of the things that you told us, like what the seating capacity of the auditorium is, what your, give us a rough idea of what your average attendance is running now on a Sunday morning. Have you had 2 services with an average of, 210 people in each or whatever it is? I understand the difference between adherents and actual Sunday AM attendees and that sort of thing. But we're primarily interested in that Sunday AM attendance thing. And but those I think are the 2 main things that I'm concerned about. This is not this is just a statement of fact. I'm not making a suggestion to you, but I've worked with many churches on what we call conditional sale of a piece of property. And it's based, and the sale of the piece of property is based on getting many times either a site plan review or a conditional use permit or maybe a variance or that sort of thing. So it's done. That's all. I'll just leave that there for you.
Thank you.
Other questions of the applicant from commissioners? Commissioner Young.
Pastor, the problem with being a planning commission is we not only have to understand what's going on today, but we have to almost use our crystal ball to say, all right, what if one of the uses in the other buildings was changed? What if, for instance, Farrell's was no longer what it is now, but they became a karate studio and they had a weekend tournament, Saturday and Sunday tournament, where I can envision a very large number of attendees and, parents and grandparents and yada. How would the parking come together? What if the gun store were to have an indoor tournament? I mean, when it was with the previous owner, there were a couple of times when I went into the gun store, into the range, and I had to park in front of Don Julio's because the rest of the parking lot was all full. So we have to make sure that we're not setting up you or the other entities in that parking center for conflict or a problem. And all of the owners in there and all of the tenants in there, they all have very, very, very good intentions. But we need to do our very best to make sure that there won't be challenges in the future. And like Commissioner Batty, I think this is a great use for that particular building. I truly do. I do expect that you will grow. I expect that you'll probably have significant events on other days and other evenings. But I just need to make sure that to the very best of my ability as I look forward, that all the uses are going to work together here. And there won't be problems.
Yeah, let me again, I just want a couple thoughts. One is I understand Commissioner Young, Commissioner Batty. I believe exactly what you're saying. You're trying to just, it's not about the church, it's about doing the right thing. And I'm 100% behind you and support that. The other thought is, and I don't know this, I would assume that there is a procedure or measurement that we are using, are we not, in the city? When we erect a building that would hold seating, a high school, a gym, or what, I don't know, but isn't there already some type of a measurement that's allotted at that point? I mean, so if our church is X amount of seats, I would assume there is, I would hope, reservation for that church for those parking spots. I don't know the answer. I would assume you guys do, but that drawing that line, I was assuming, that meant this is the parking that is allocated to you, because if we reverse that and we didn't have much parking, let's just say it's 16 parking places out there, I would assume we wouldn't even have gotten this building or even been able to design an auditorium flow. So I'm assuming we're okay in that area. I just don't know what to do next, or what's the next step to take here to resolve that issue. Commissioner Batty, you've done this before. Are we on the right trail here? Do we need to figure something out, or do we just need to go to a blueprint or a model that has already been determined that we would go by?
Commissioner Batty, go ahead.
I have to be careful here, because there is help available. Let me just put it that way.
Okay.
And we can figure this thing out.
Okay.
And I think it can be done relatively painlessly. But we've got to have more information in front of us here to be able to make an informed decision. It comes down to that. It has nothing to do with the church or their track record or their history or that sort of thing. It has to do with,
I 100% agree with you.
Procedure
absolutely.
Here. Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted
a really unfortunate thing here. It's just,
yeah, but I think all of you, we all want to do the right thing. I'd hate to move into this if it was not agreed upon by all of us that this is a fair measurement to, if we do grow quickly, we understand we might even grow ourselves out of this location, and we need to know that too, based on what we do for parameters even tonight or down the road. So we need to understand that.
Yeah.
And you're right, Commissioner Young, you have to think ahead, and I hear you saying that, and I 100% agree with that, as churches have to think ahead, right? So you're right on target there. I don't disagree with either one of you. So.
Commissioner Young, I saw your hand go up as well.
Oh, and the parameters are there. Donovan presented earlier that you need a parking spot for every 3 seats. So right now you've got a 300 peeps. You got 98 slots. Life is good.
Yep.
If you expand your interior so that you have a much larger auditorium, and you have 450 seats or 420 seats, divide by 3, and that's how many parking slots you need.
Correct.
And so there are some parameters. Y'all were not a very large church when you got the permits that you're working under now. I'm not sure at that time you thought that you would grow this as you have. So we're just trying to do the best we can.
And I
believe it would be to your advantage for us to table this evening, so that you would have the information. If we were to deny this, you would have to pay an additional fee. But if we were to table, then you could continue with getting your information and coming back to us with more information.
And
We just
I
wanna do the
would,
right-
pre-
yeah,
I
wanna do
would
the right-
prefer we table any motion if that is the intent of the commission after the public hearing. So go ahead, Pastor Brad.
Oh, I just was confirming what Commissioner Young said, we just need to make sure we got it right, as we move forward, so.
All right. Other questions on the staff report or on for the applicant? All right, seeing none, we'll move into the public hearing. Donovan, do we have anyone actually, we're going to open the public hearing at 8:20 p.m. Donovan, do we have anyone at City Hall itching to talk about this item?
No.
Karen, do we have anyone online?
Let me see here. No, I do not have anyone.
It says Sergeant Mon. I see your hand going up.
Yes.
Can you so I didn't say this earlier because there was no one else, so you're the first one. Can you state your name and address for the record and then go ahead and state whatever you wish for the public hearing?
My name is Tom Terry. 26752 Freeport Court, Wyoming, Minnesota. I am a parishioner at Willowbrook Church, and I'm also a member of what Brad might call a steering committee, or I'm not on the board of the church, but we're helping Brad walk through this process. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine. Keep going.
Okay. I would like to I wonder if I could address some of the issues that the commissioners brought up. And let me just go through them one by one. I think the main one was the parking. And Donovan, if you would run through those numbers again, I believe you said the required by the code was 98 spaces for the church.
Well, it's based on the number of seats within the place of worship, within the auditorium room. And it's one parking space for every 3 seats.
Okay.
It's the required minimum.
But also at the same time, I believe you said that based on that arbitrarily drawn red line on the lot, there are 205 spaces available. So so required 98, but 205 available in that parking lot. Should the line actually be drawn at that point? We don't even know that yet. So, because at this point we're asking for a conditional use permit. The owner and a couple people we've talked to had said what makes the most sense maybe at this point is not to outright purchase and subdivide the property, but to do a common interest community. And so my understanding is the reason that is done is because you have this community parking lot that, like Commissioner Young said, maybe the karate guy uses half of it one day and we use part of it on Sunday. You have common things like plowing. It's like if we were to physically divvy up the land and plat it out, who plows what part? Whereas in a common interest community, that's kind of like a condo section. Nobody owns any particular spot, although we technically own it, but it's all shared. So I think some of the parking stuff, and also considering the fact that we've been there 10 years with the IUP, I don't know if there's been any complaints or any issues with parking over the 10 years. If there have been, we haven't heard about it. So I'd like to bring that up. So it's not 98, we have 205 available. The other thing is tonight we're looking for, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. I suppose we could negotiate with the owner and say, we want to buy it contingent on getting a CUP from the city, or do we get a CUP from the city? And like Donovan said, a lot of developers do that. They want to make sure that they can get the use that they need before they purchase the property. So we're kind of stuck with the chicken and the egg thing here. So I'm not sure how the city looks at that. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is the plat or the plan or the overhead view that was shown to the council members. That was from when I believe, Brad, that was from when we originally moved into the space, and that was shown to the city for what the parking was available for the church. Is that true?
That's what Spratzky's drew up for us, yes.
Right. So assuming we get a CUP, or we get a CUP contingent on our purchasing it, or the landlord gets the CUP because he owns the property, but it's contingent on Willowbrook purchasing it, we still have to go through the CIC. And at that point, all of these issues with the parking and the use and the mixed use and how that is divvied up, I think, Donovan, is that not taken care of during the CIC process? So those are the points that I wanted to bring up.
All right, thank you, Terry.
Yes.
Karen, is there anyone else that is online wishing to speak on this item? Karen, you're on mute.
Yep, sorry about that. No, I don't have anybody right now.
All right, and Donovan?
There's no one here.
All right, we'll give it a little less than 30 seconds here, and then we'll just check and then close the public hearing. All right, anyone at Watkins City Hall? Donovan? No? Okay, Karen?
No one.
We'll close the public hearing at 8:26 p.m. and bring this back to commissioners for consideration of a motion. Commissioners? I can start off the discussion since I see no one's hands being raised. I think a few of the commissioners made some points earlier that do raise some concern for me. Having the plot of land or a very clearly established agreement that states the percentage of parking that is allocated to that church and not the rest of the facilities, whatever that plan is, and I don't have a preference either way personally, but whatever that plan is, I think I would like to see that before we move into approval so that we know here's the exact number of parking spaces that are dedicated to the church and allocated to that specifically, so that the others, float with those properties, whatever that might become down the road. But what's key to me, I think, is having that tied to the total number of future chairs that could be in that church or the future occupancy limit that's in that church. And I like many of you had discussed the it's not so much a problem today. Maybe it is on Christmas, maybe it is on Easter, probably not in 2020, but 5 years down the road when they hit the growth plans that they want. And I think it's really important that we have that condition set in place there. I don't know what that is. I'm not prepared to try to even figure that out tonight. I'm going to have to research, honestly. Commissioner Young said that there was some past practices where we have denied a plan because there wasn't a property in ownership, and I'm not discounting or disbelieving. I just want to look at those a little closer to understand the depth of that. And I'd feel much more comfortable if there was a precedent set and kind of knowing that detail, because in all honesty, I don't know that. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm very supportive of tabling. I'm hesitant to say yes as it's presented. And so I think if I were forced to vote one way or the other, I don't know that I could support it tonight, but I very much see myself being able to support it with more information down the road. Donovan, did you have your hand up?
Certainly. Thank you. I was thinking, would some just basic parking data be helpful in this situation? Basic parking surveys at peak times to show with this many seats, how many cars are occupying the parking lot, and for the church use as well as some of the other peak users, some of the restaurants, say, some of the bigger parking generators in the shopping center. I think that might be useful. Maybe the commissioners agree.
I don't know about other commissioners. They may see that as useful. It would not help me, to tell you the truth, Donovan. And so I wouldn't ask you to spend time on that. What's helpful for me is knowing what does our code say as the number of people allowed from a church per each parking space, and then knowing exactly the number of spaces they'll have on whatever that final plan is. And I think there's still some vagueness to that, and multiplying that out and tying a condition to the CUP. My fear here is if this was a discussion of the IUP, I would very much follow what you're going with, because an IUP can be stopped. A CUP, once we approve it, it's done. Like there's nothing we can do to fix it. Whereas an IUP, and if I remember right, the last IUP for this one, I think I was on the commission, and I want to say I supported it, and I pushed that we had it for a very long period of time. And I think there was some discussion on that because the church had set a precedent. And it goes out to 2026 for that reason. And they built that trust over time, but like somebody can build trust, they can get big and then start causing problems too. And it's not that that's the intent of a church, but in a CUP world, we don't have a say unless we put it very specifically in as a condition. So that's kind of where I'm at on that, Donovan, which is probably a whole lot easier for you, I'm guessing. Commissioners, discussion on the item? It is available for a motion at this point too. Commissioner Young.
Mr. Chair, I move that we table this item. And I know that you prefer to have a time certain, but until the applicant can come back to us with a purchase order or a purchase agreement or some sort of solid information of exactly what they are going to purchase and what their growth expectations are.
I think I understand your motion. Karen, did you grasp all that? Thank you. There's a motion. Is there to postpone? Is there a second? Commissioner Batty?
Second.
Commissioner Batty seconds. I have one. So it is, the motion is non-debatable, but I have a question for staff. And just on this, it's a more of a point of order than anything. Donovan, if the motion in place to table went beyond the 90 or 180 day rule, what happens? Does it automatically come back with that motion?
No, the applicant can give his consent to extension beyond 120 days. That's the total time. Right. If that consent is not coming, then I bring it back to the planning commission for a decision.
So you'll bring it back. Thank you.
Or else get consent.
Thank you.
Written consent.
There is a motion and a second. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young?
Aye.
Commissioner Batty?
Aye.
Commissioner Keane?
Aye.
Commissioner Brink?
Aye.
Chair Langness?
Aye. Pastor Brad, if we can't discuss the item anymore because it's tabled, and that's part of policy with how a rule of table works. But I always like to explain to applicants so you understand what we did is we said we're going to set this on the table, and we're happy to come back to it with the portions that were outlined. And I would direct you to staff after the meeting if you have questions on the specifics of that, as we can't really discuss that in this particular meeting according to Robert's rules. So, but I thank you for coming and presenting today. And I think most of the comments were pretty positive on your proposal.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 9, the Castlewood Clubhouse site plan review. This is being brought back from our last meeting. Donovan, do you want to start us off and go through the process on this?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair, members of Planning Commission. I'd like to present the Castlewood Golf Course site plan review. As Chair Langus mentioned, we are bringing this, the Planning Commission requested more information and some exterior enhancements to the clubhouse building located at 750 Scandia Trail on the Castlewood Golf Course, which is owned by the city. I'd like to present the site plan, which shows the and first of all, including in your staff packet, we saw the utility. Where's that? I'm sorry. Where'd it go? Sorry. We saw the utility package. Sorry, my file went away. And so we do have a full site plan to show you that includes the access pathway that has been reviewed by Fire Chief Newman and deemed to be satisfactory as a 12-foot wide bituminous pathway leading directly from the existing parking lot to the clubhouse building. And this pathway will also be there for deliveries, to the 3,200 square foot single-story clubhouse. What we have behind here is the golf cart storage area, and you can see some of the beginnings of the landscaping
Donovan,
plan
you're
here.
not sharing your screen.
Oh. I apologize.
Thank you, Commissioner Young.
So what we have here, again, I'll repeat, sorry. The 12-foot bituminous pathway leading from the existing parking lot. And as you can see, the carts are currently stored here out in the open. They'll be relocated to here in this golf cart storage area on the southern side of the 3,200 square foot clubhouse. What also you'll see here is some of the preliminary, some of the rudiments of the landscaping plan showing the deciduous trees there on the west and full screening of arborvitae on that southern and eastern sides. Basically all the public view from nearby Scandia Trail. Going a little deeper into the landscaping plan, we can see pretty full assortment of foundation plantings, and that's both, I mentioned the trees there and the plantings, and then also providing some basic view of the building. We've added a kind of a stone wainscoting here as well, provide a thing. And as before, there's two sides of the building that do not have windows. Those are the sides that would be subject to golf balls coming to them and breaking glass. And so the plan is not putting glass on those sides. So what we have for renderings, though, this is coming from the northwest. So we see the deciduous trees. We have a kind of a covered area for gathering, for consuming refreshments. The use of this clubhouse will be both as the pro shop, having some golfer retail, as well as food and beverages, simple food for golfers. And then also coming from that Scandia Trail view, Highway 97, looking from the southeast, we see the arborvitae, which grow to maturity of about 15 to 20 feet. Here we probably have them around maybe around 10. Basically that from the grade to the bottom of that kind of shed shed roof structure, the overhang is about 12 feet tall. So you can kind of imagine that, by the time these go to maturity, just the roof will be in appearance. So just as a review, so we have, the golf clubhouse, which currently is here, not on city property, is being replaced by a larger structure, one that also does have restrooms, which is a big goal of the cities now, to be able to have remove the porta potties from the golf course, and also provide a much more comfortable environment for golfers, and also a place more secure for the storage of the golf carts seasonally. And this is within an area that's meets all the zoning setbacks, of course, for a structure, and is set far from any boundaries or anything that could impact with any construction activities on this 42 plus acre site. And currently there were foundations poured to prior to the frost in order to get that, but there's currently no structure on the site. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the Planning Commission.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Donovan, is City Administrator Patrick Casey presenting anything additional for the city on this? Is there the applicant, or are you giving the full report?
I'm giving the report. I'm sure Mr. Casey is available for questions and anything else he wants to add.
Was there anything additional, Patrick?
No, not unless
Okay.
you have questions.
So commissioners, questions on the report? Commissioner Keane?
Yeah, they've already put the footings in without permits or anything, and they ran the water and sewer lines without a permit, without an okay or anything so far. Just a yes or no?
Yeah, I don't think I'm not sure the water and sewer, and we just wanted to make sure the footings got in before frost, knowing that we'd have to come back to the Plan Commission and get approval for the building.
Well, what if it's not approved?
Pardon me? Well, then the footings get buried in soil.
Okay. I had a couple questions. We asked you before to come back with some measurements and stuff, and I don't see any measurements or dimensions on the building. I know it's 3,840 square feet. Nothing on the patio, the golf cart parking. How big is that patio out on the north side? How big is the golf cart patio?
I believe the patio is a 10-foot overhang on the patio. And I think the building is 60 by 50.
What?
60 by 50, I believe the building.
60 by 50.
And a 10-foot overhang in the patio. I can't tell you how much the golf cart is offhand.
Okay. I like the mixture of the trees, but the 2-inch diameter on the linden maple, those are fine. But that red oak at a 2-inch, it's going to be 30 years before you see any noticeable, 20 years, 30 years down the road. I'd like to see that maybe, say, a 4-inch.
Upsize that, yeah.
Yeah, that's about all. It was just nice to see if we had some dimensions to kind of picture this. I mean, we can see the pictures, but I don't know if they've thought about on the patio side, if there's going to be like a little, you said there's going to be some sort of a refreshment and food in there, maybe a sliding window so that people don't have to come into the building if it's air conditioned. They can just sit out on the patio, and just something I noticed.
Yeah, we've talked about that. We haven't made a decision on whether we're going to put a slider in. That's kind of, we have to leave that a little bit up to the contractual operator to see what they're interested in.
And then my last question, what are they going to do with the old clubhouse since it's not on city property?
It's not on city property. It's on the restaurant property. It's a very small size for anything. I assume it's going to go away. I can't see that staying. There's no real good use for it. It's, I've been in it, and it's probably a, 6x9 trailer of some kind, and you've got an office, a pro shop, and a cooler there. So there's not much we can do there. So I'm assuming that'll go away.
If I could,
go ahead, Donovan.
Yeah, if I could. I apologize for not including more of the building plans, but here I'll show you dimensions that Commissioner Keane was asking for. So we have the main structure 50 by 64, and then as Administrator Casey said, the 10-foot overhang on that north side. So you can kind of see where my cursor is. That's the overhang area, and this is the main building portion there.
All right,
Patrick,
Patrick.
is that 10-foot overhang, is that going to be enough for some tables and chairs and yet people, or you think that should be a little larger?
No, we think that'll be enough. With, you can always walk out into the grass if you have to, but it's enough to put some nice tables and chairs and just have people hang out while they finish their round or before they start off.
Okay, thank you.
Patrick, to me, it actually looked like before our November meeting that the sewer had been dug, it had been hydro-seeded over it, and it was placed in there. Now, I did actually physically go on the site Friday last week, and it was very evident to me that the sewer was already completely placed in. So
yeah, they may have open cut on the golf course. I'm not sure the entire sewer's in. I'd have to check. I haven't been told either way on that.
And then I was actually given pictures and had phone calls last week from people that told me poles were going up in the air.
Yeah, we were just
that a structure was being built. So
yeah.
I guess I'd like a little bit of where was that authority ever granted? Was there ever a permit pulled for any of these pieces?
Yeah, there's a permit existing, and the poles were only to set the footings, and then they were taken off. So the footings are there, the poles are not. They were just, I believe the builder was just making sure that everything lined up before they went any further with the footings. We did have a permit, an inspection. We had to change some of the footings based on some of the inspections that our own inspector did. But yeah, we have a permit for the building.
So this is what confuses. I guess this is what confuses me. So I think, quite frankly, I'm going to just be really honest. I think this whole process on this sucks. This whole plan should have been in front of the Planning Commission months ago. And well in advance of footings being poured, well in advance of sewers being put in and an investment being made. The process appears to me that it's, oh, we forgot to go to the Planning Commission and we probably technically need to do this. And so can you just rubber stamp this after the fact?
Yeah, no, and I agree, it's probably not our finest hour, to be quite honest with you. And not to get into the funding of this, but we had to do certain things that we thought were appropriate to meet the funding guidelines that we understood at the time. We're relooking at those funding guidelines, and that'll be for council to discuss on Monday. So we had to act fairly quickly, and we knew that we had to go to the Plan Commission, but we just had to act based on some of the regulations we thought we were going to have to live by. But now that's kind of changing, or will change probably by Monday. And if we had to do it again, yeah, we would follow it the way we should follow it. So we were just trying to make sure we qualified under some of the federal guidelines we had to meet.
All right, commissioners, other questions? Commissioner Keane?
So the federal guidelines said you had to put the sewer and water in and the foundation or the footings before you could get a permit.
No, the federal guidelines said we had to be under construction. I believe it was I think it was the 15th of November was the date. So, I mean, it's not the way we like to do business, not the way I like to do business, but we were scrambling. And again, not to get into too much funding, we had very little guidance to begin this whole process with the feds. They just kind of threw money at everybody and said, okay, do what you got to do. But then later on, some of these guidelines came through, and now, we know better. The last probably 4 weeks or last 3 weeks, And again, like I said, council will have to address that. We'll address that on Monday.
So Patrick, I very early on in this pandemic era that we're all living through, I had a discussion with Mayor Bain, and there was a phone call between the two of us, and it was, do you have a, she was asking me, and I'm summarizing her words, probably not putting them, straight out of her mouth, but in summary, it was, do you have a problem if temporary things happen and bypass the planning commission? And we had discussed items like what we allowed our restaurants to do.
Right.
And those were temporary structures. And I was like, you know what, just do whatever we got to do to save our businesses. And if this plan was a temporary structure to provide social distancing for 2 employees in the current building, I would have no problem with this and would probably have approved it at the last meeting. This is a permanent physical building that will not move probably until after I'm long dead.
Probably. And I agree with you that
and for that reason,
caveat I have there is it's not just for 2 employees, it's for the patrons of the golf course to register, come in and buy merchandise or refreshments or things like that. And I don't know how many of you been in that building, but if you had 3 people in that building, currently it's crowded. And that was the concern that we had to begin with. So,
and my point, it still stands. If you were building a temporary structure to accommodate that need without an expanded use of the facility, because you're talking about expanding liquor, expanding food options, expanding services, expanding operations throughout the year, and who knows what else. I mean, it's got an empty pallet inside the box. And so this is not a let's just do something temporary for this temporary need. This is a much more long-term plan. And I think that needs much more comprehensive, well thought out planning. And in all honesty, like the packet we got last month had nothing in it. It had 4 drawings from Menards and on a sketch pad where you conceptually wanted to put this building and a wide path where the sewer would go. And it appeared you had already started construction. And we tabled it asking for more information. In all honesty, I still don't have all the information. And last week on Friday, when the agenda packet went out, it said on the agenda it would come under other cover. Now that information didn't become available to myself or my colleagues here or the general public until late Monday afternoon, which I think, quite frankly, is way too short of a time period for the public to be able to review and provide us feedback. And quite frankly, in all the years I've been on the Planning Commission, there's maybe only 2 or 3 items that have had more public interest than this. And so I think we should be doing everything to have those engagements and make sure that this very permanent structure is the right permanent structure in the right place with the right pieces of safety. And quite frankly, if we end up losing, federal funding for it or something, and we have a better project, I think that's the better plan. But even in the plan, even in the paperwork that I received for this application, there's nothing about parking in here. And so every time we get a plan from a developer of any type of commercial activity, and that's essentially what this is a commercial activity on parkland. It's operating a bar and a restaurant and a commercial golf course on parkland. There's nothing mentioned about parking in there. And I understand that the city has some sort of easement on the adjoining parking lot, but it's not clear that you have been given authority. Have you been given authority to be granted additional easement for the additional use that will be impacted on that property? Have you been given authority for the easement for the fire lane that will have to be placed for the trail? have those things happened?
Well, we have full authority to park golf course patrons on the property. That's what the easement is very clear on that. The use of the property is not changing. It's still for a golf course. Under the when this was created, that land can only be a park or a golf course. That's the two options. There can't be anything else there. So we have full authority. We've been in discussions with the owner of the restaurant regarding, some certain issues, maintenance of the parking lot, if that's the case. But right now we have, full, and we've talked with all of our attorneys, we have full legal authority to park there. The use is really not changing. The pathway is already there anyways from before. We're not, I think there's some misconception that we're putting, a full service bar that'll be open until midnight or something. And that's obviously not the case. It's not a change of use. We have had liquor rights there prior to the proposal of this building. So that's really not going to change. I think and I think a lot of your points are absolutely valid, and I understand and I agree with them. But the use isn't changing dramatically yet. I mean, we're not still a golf course clubhouse. All we're trying to do is make sure we have a good amenity for the patrons and have the ability for the golf course to break even so the tax dollars aren't spent there. That's the bottom line, is we want this to be self-sufficient. We don't think it's currently viable with that small clubhouse to make that. And I would rather see us get to that point than to, in the long run, have to subsidize this golf course. I don't want to do that.
All right, commissioners, other questions? Commissioner Keane?
Mr. Brinkhead.
Well, speaking of the parking lot, is that a city parking lot? Because I know
No.
the city, okay, did the city blacktop that or put lighting in or
No.
do something with that?
No, there was an agreement when the golf course was placed, and we were looking at documents from 1986 and I believe it's 1990. That the history of this is when that building was built, a portion or all of that was really supposed to be the clubhouse for the golf course. That's what it was built for. Somewhere down the line, and it's probably the township at the time, decided that they should sell that off to a restaurant. And but what they did is they retained parking rights to that property, and then they built that small golf hut to do that. So originally the vision was to have the golf course run the clubhouse in that building, and once it was sold, the city had the right of first refusal to access or to buy that back. I don't think the city, and at that time probably the township, ever got that right of first refusal offered to them. So that's what's brought us to the situation we're at, where we're trying to kind of run a golf course with, running a golf course with a clubhouse on someone else's property and having 3 people get in there and be crowded. Again, it's about sustaining the golf course, improving the golf course, making it sustainable so that, again, we don't have to spend taxpayers' dollars to support this thing.
So the city has no interest at all in that parking lot or the lighting that was put in there in the last couple of years?
No, we do not. All we have is an easement rights that allows golf course patrons to park on the property and for us to access the property on the golf course. I mean, if you also know the golf course at all, to the northwest, that would be, there's a whole maintenance shed that we have to get to, and we still have to go across the parking lot. So,
Commissioner Brink, I apologize. You had your hand up as well.
Donovan, just going way back to your presentation, you mentioned something about the porta potties. What exactly did you say? They're being all consolidated, or?
Yeah. So
right now we have to put porta potties out for the golf course people to use. The new building anticipates indoor plumbing and using the bathrooms inside. I think it was 2 bathrooms.
But we're not, okay, so all the porta potties are going to be gone when the clubhouse is open?
Yes.
That's not, I don't think that's feasible. How is your average golfer expected to hold their bladder for a round of golf?
Well, it's only 9 holes. I'm not sure, to be quite honest, if there's porta potties out on the course, but the course does Where the clubhouse is the first and the sixth tee. So by the time you get back, if you have a good bladder, you may be able to make it. But I think that I don't think there's porta potties out actually on the course itself.
Yeah, there are. There. I think there's at least 2 of them. I know there's one where the original clubhouse was, but I just as an aside, I would probably keep that one because that I always see that one being used. But
yeah, well, and that's really up to the operator to tell us. Is the porta potty need to be out on the 3rd fairway or wherever the case may be.
Sure. Thanks for clarifying.
Other questions, Commissioner Young?
The last time we met, I asked for the standard set of drawings that we would have for any other facility. And I attended an online forum the other night, and I grant you have done a wonderful job of providing the lipstick for the landscape plans, and the lipstick is here. Unfortunately, the rest of the clothes aren't. I'm looking for a utility plan. Where are you running I assume sewer is coming off of 97. I don't know where the water's coming from. I don't know where the electricity is coming from. Is it overhead or is it buried? We typically have a utility plan. I understand from the write-up that a drainage permit was put together, but I don't see any drainage plan here. You're going to have, I just ran some quick numbers. 1-inch rain is going to give you 2,500 gallons of water. And without any gutters or anything else that I see on your plan, you're going to have a nice puddle around your building. Howard, what is the drainage plan for that? I understand from Donovan that you have the permit from the watershed district, but I don't know where the drainage is going to go. And that is something we ask of every other developer. I understand, I think I heard that there will be no lighting on the building, which kind of surprises me, because I would think that would be helpful for security.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But if there's lighting on the building, then we need the lighting plan so that we know that those lights will be directed down, and that we have, it's not going to interfere with anybody on 97. Fortunately, now that we have the landscape plan, when those trees grow up, that'll be fine. I respect Chief Newman, but since we don't know how the building, and he probably doesn't know how the building will be cut up, I'm not sure that he can make sure that there are adequate exits in case of a kitchen fire or something, so that everybody can get out, depending on how the building is put together. The same kinds of things that we talked about in the first couple of agenda items tonight. Process. It is our responsibility to make sure that as the future goes, that this is going to be functional. This is going to be a good thing for the community. We don't have that information, but the landscape plan looks really, really nice. That I appreciate, and it's going to, when things get grown, and Mike, I need your thoughts on how big a #1 arborvitae is, and how long it's going to take to grow up. But that is a tremendous improvement from what we saw last time, and I appreciate the as it was called, the lipstick. That was good. But I don't know where the drainage is going to go. I don't know how it's not going to be a muddy mess when it rains. I don't know where your utilities are drawn in. And those are things that we would expect of any other developer.
Yeah, and I think in the memo there was, I thought, if I saw it right, where there was a sewer diagram where the sewer was coming from.
If I could share that.
Yep.
So here we have coming from, from the trunk line on Scanning Trail. I'll zero in a little more. You can see on that southwest corner is the restrooms.
Yep.
You have the utilities leading directly there. And in addition to the restrooms, there'll be a small sink, just for simple, just hand cleaning, not a full kitchen sink.
Yeah, there will not be a full kitchen.
Food,
there
needs to be a sink for the kitchen.
Well, it's a sink. It'll assist with food preparation, but it's not a full kitchen sink.
It shows
You know, I mean,
restrooms there.
with a double and, you know.
The restrooms will have sinks. I think what you're confusing that there'll be
No, I see a little cutout that goes right on the end of the sewer that says restrooms.
Yeah. There'll be sinks in the restrooms. The lighting, the electricity is already out to the current clubhouse. That's underneath the ground anyway, so they'll probably be extended to the new clubhouse. We don't anticipate any pole or overhead lighting. That doesn't seem to be any reason for that. There may be some outside, building lights by the doors, but there won't be much lighting. We don't need to have that kind of lighting. Since most of the golfing thing, there's activities are done by dusk and closed. And I believe the water plan was a well. The water's not really close there, and it would be prohibitive to try to run water from, I think it's the other subdivisions to the north. And as far as the drainage goes, it's all going to be grass, and there hasn't been drainage issues now. I know there's going to be, like you said, there's a runoff issue with the roofing, but I think that there's plenty of capacity of grass to soak all that in. I understand. And the comment earlier is what we've been trying to put this together as fast as we can, and that's what we were able to come up with it, so that we would have an opportunity to review a better picture of what we're doing.
And I have to take responsibility for adding a few days to that, because I really wanted those side renderings, showing the landscaping within the, surrounding the building.
Right. Patrick, if you've got a shallow well, it's going to have an issue with nitrates. If you've got a deep well, you're going to have to go to the DNR, and you know what the issues are for deeper wells.
Oh, I do that.
Aquifers.
I anticipate a shallower well with some kind of water softening or something that would take all that out, I would assume. I haven't talked to Dave about that yet, but I understand that, yeah.
Other questions, commissioners? Karen, I know there is not a public hearing on this item, but did we have any public comment waiting on the queue here?
I do not.
And Donovan, did we have someone at City Hall waiting to talk on this item?
No, sir.
All right. So commissioners certainly can make a motion or have discussion on this item.
I'm up for any conversation on it right now, but I'm kind of leaning towards tabling this until they come back with the inside diagrams of where the walls are going to be, the outside lights, just the normal prints that we ask for from everyone else. The drainage, downspouts, gutters, whatever. But if anybody else has any more comments, let's hear them.
I concur with Commissioner Keane. In addition, I would like greater clarity on the parking easement, and if that means commentary or a letter from our attorney that says it's very clear that the city has established parking there, because I have read those old documents, and that they are somewhat confusing, and there's language in there that would suggest that the city has been or absent their duty to do plowing maintenance on that parking lot, which I understand we don't do and haven't done for quite a number of years.
Yeah, can I comment on that one real quick?
Hang on one second, Patrick, let me finish. And I would like clarity from our attorney that says, yes, we still have an easement there, that we haven't lost part of that as a result of not fulfilling our duty in it. It's not, I don't want to have to draw up my own opinion by reading those documents. I would rather have something very clear and very understood from the applicant in this versus something that I have to come up with on my own.
Yeah, let me just cover that really quickly. As far as the easement, there's often when people are reading these documents, they tie the easement with these agreements. They are two totally separate and independent items. The easement is 100% rock solid. we will be happy to provide that. It's not a problem. As far as the agreements go, the agreements were the original development agreements, which we believe, well, in the agreement, it says plow snow. We haven't done that for a while because the agreements were not assignable to anybody after the people who signed it. The only one who could assign those rights were the town at the time. They never did that. So there is no agreements in force as far as some of that other stuff goes, but we will be happy for the attorney to state that as well.
That would be helpful. Are there other things other commissioners are looking for in the same direction, or do you guys wish to go a different direction here?
One more, that's that 12-foot easement for the fire trucks to get in there now. Now, on the diagram, it looks like it's kind of a sharp turn. Their trucks are really big. It's a 100-foot ladder truck, and the other ones are 5,500 gallons or 3,500 gallons of water. They're big, they're heavy, they're long. So just something to take into consideration. I know Al probably looked at them, and
he did.
But
we'll look at it again. That's not an issue. I mean,
that's easy, but that's an easy thing to change. Yeah. 10 feet here, 3 feet there, but just so it's out there.
Other commissioners, discussion? A motion? Anything?
I'll make a motion to table this until they bring back all the information that we discussed tonight at their earliest convenience. Because I'd like to see the thing going forward, but I don't know. They just keep building and building on this project without.
Commissioner Keane, you've made a motion to table. A motion to table is a non-debatable motion. So if you want to debate, we can keep doing that. You can withdraw your table immediately. Otherwise, I'll seek a second for your table. Okay, so Commissioner Keane has motion to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Brink has seconded it. It's a non-debatable motion. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young?
Aye.
Commissioner Batty?
Aye.
Commissioner Keane?
Aye.
Commissioner Brink?
Aye.
Chair Langness?
Aye. Motion carries. The Castlewood Clubhouse is tabled. We are moving on to item number 10, other business. We'll start with staff. Donovan, I always start with our council liaison, Commissioner Gerard, or Council Member Gerard. My apologies.
Call me whatever you want. I really have no update. Nothing came before us from your last meeting. Well, we had this table, then I forget a couple other items I chat on the agenda, but none of them made it to the city yet. So I really have nothing to report as far as that goes. But I'd be happy to answer any questions or give anybody details, anything they like.
Commissioner Keane.
Have you heard anything about a pay raise for the commissioners?
This isn't April 1st.
No, but $8.33 an hour is pretty cheap. When you get $25 a night, now that's the biggest bang for the dollar the city's getting.
Commissioner Keane, we do it for our love of the city.
Well said, Susan. I can tell you, I used to have a friend on the Edina Planning Commission, and they volunteer completely. They don't even get a stipend. So you guys get infinite more than Edina does. So you're way up there.
I would note, Commissioner Gerard, and I personally do not certainly do this job for the money, and I think it works out to be less than $8 an hour for me. But what I will suggest to put the thought in as you're developing that idea, if that's even in consideration, is that a salary, whether it's for a planning commission or a park board or whatever it is in those public service roles, if there isn't a wage sufficient enough to fulfill at least somebody's costs, which might include daycare or driving around and looking at projects, what you're really doing is alienating persons that can't afford to be in those positions from really being able to serve in it without having to give great commitment up. And so for that reason, I have actually always supported that those are higher, but I have personally never complained to you about it. So I'll put that on the record out there. That might surprise you because I'm usually one that's pretty much a tight budget hawk, but are there other comments for our council member?
I'll let your thoughts on that. Not a problem.
All right, Donovan, do you have any comments?
I'll just say this is the only planning commission meeting in December, so happy holidays. It's still not certain whether I'll say that I think we will have a meeting on January 11th, 2021. I have no other items right now. Thank you. I'm open to any questions.
Are there questions for Donovan? Seeing none. Karen, do you have any comments for tonight?
I do not. Is the meeting on January 11th or January 13th? Would be the only comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think January 11th is.
Yeah, 13th. You're correct. I was thinking city council.
I think it's the council meeting.
Also, you can mention meeting calendar, Karen.
It's actually, oh, did this get shifted? I have the 6th down. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It should be the 13th and the 27th in January. Correct?
Yeah. On the December
January 13th would be the next plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the December 14th City Council agenda is the 2021 meeting calendar. And so we'll get that out to you. Karen will get that out to you early in the year.
Questions for Karen?
So once that's I'll send it out to boards and commissions, and that's the calendar that lists all of the meetings. And then what I do with that is I also put it onto the website. So you can always go to the website and take a look at the city calendar to see when those meetings are scheduled.
Are there any questions for Karen? Seeing none, we'll go around commissioners. Commissioner Brink?
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Batty?
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Keane?
Karen, did you get my email I sent you with those pictures?
Did I?
Karen. Oh, she was there.
For Karen?
And then I have nothing. Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Young?
Nothing.
And I have nothing as well. We will move on to.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I lost my connection. Is everybody back?
Yep, Karen, we've all given essentially no update after you, and we're moving on to item number 11, adjournment.
Okay. Okay.
I'll stay on after and update you with anything that you needed in the records. So we're on item number 11, adjournment. Commissioners? I'll move. I move adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Brink seconded. That's a non-debatable motion. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young.
Aye.
Commissioner Batty.
Aye.
I think her internet connection's going out.
Yeah.
Aye.
Commissioner Keane,
Aye.
is
Commissioner
it
Brink.
mine? Commissioner
It's
Brink?
it's yours, Karen. I'll finish. Commissioner Brink says aye, and I say aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Karen, I'll stay on and update you with anything that you needed there. We're adjourned.
right.
Thanks. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Christmas.
Happy New
Happy
Year to everyone.
solstice.
Happy season.
Happy
Karen, can you
Kwanzaa.
leave me on? Can you leave me on with you three, you two?
Yeah, I won't close it at the moment. I'm gonna
Okay.
shut off the
Can-
YouTube.